All right, Earth Day. It was just 50 years ago, April 22nd, 1970, that I was with a group of students who walked 9 miles from the UW-Deckner campus in Green Bay all the way to the new campus of UWGB, known as Survival U. En route, this group slowed traffic along the entrance road to the new campus. As a participant, we were trying to draw attention to the air pollution created using so many cars. Key issues back in 1970 included pollution of air and water, population explosion, species loss, and global warming. This may sound familiar. A few years ago, my sister Laura asked me to speak to her elementary school class at Wickwiock School in Green Bay. The topic was Earth Day. She asked the kids, "What is Earth Day?" There was a consensus among the fourth graders. The answer boiled down to cleanliness. Their experience reflected a common impression that it had to do with picking up trash and litter. One kid even suggested it's about cleaning up after old people. Ouch. I asked the kids how many had an address. Of course, all of them did. Question: why don't you live out on a rock someplace? Why do you live at your address? What do you get there that you need? The fourth graders listed food, water, shelter, cover, etc. Habitat can be thought of as an animal's address for those very same reasons. We then took the kids on a hike on a trail through a small wooded area adjacent to the school to explore habitats. We hoped to discover how they might be similar to and different from our own. The kids got up close and personal with flowers, leaves, buds, insects, and spiders. Along the way, we did a predator-prey activity, shared stories, and learned a couple of unique plant names. Children have a built-in affinity for nature, and they came up with a great idea. They thought every day should be Earth Day. When Earth Day was conceived, the Vietnam War was becoming increasingly controversial. As the death toll rose, the news was punctuated by demonstrations, draft card burning, and body counts. It was with this backdrop that Gaylord Nelson was inspired by teach-ins held all over the country to shed light on that Vietnam War. How about teach-ins focused on the environment? This could certainly educate, but could also help cut through the ambivalence of politicians and media toward environmental issues. He proposed the first Earth Day on April 22, 1970. It touched a national nerve. An estimated 20 million people nationwide attended environmental lectures, movies, demonstrations, etc. all that day. And of course, like us, some of us went on a march. Earth Day is an appropriate time for gaining a better understanding that this is a time of crisis. Al Gore stated, "As many know, the Chinese expression for crisis consists of two characters side by side. The first is the symbol for danger. The second is the symbol for opportunity." As a teach-in, Earth Day should help us gain understanding. Harvard ecologist E.O. Wilson has summarized some of the major issues behind the environmental crisis with the acronym HIPPO, H-I-P-P-O. Habitat destruction, invasive species, pollution, population, and overharvesting. H equals habitat. TV producer, zoologist, and conservationist Jack Hanna said, "The most important thing is to preserve the world we live in. Unless people understand and learn about our world, habitats, and animals, they won't understand that if we don't protect those habitats, we all eventually will destroy ourselves. Senator Gaylord Nelson said, "The wealth of the nation is its air, water, soil, forests, minerals, rivers, lakes, oceans, scenic beauty, wildlife habitats, and biodiversity. That's all there is. That's the whole economy. That's where all the economic activity and jobs come from. These biological systems are the sustaining wealth of the world," unquote. Well said by Senator Nelson. I equals invasive species. Dr. Doug Tallamy, inspecting the landscape around his new home in Delaware, was surprised at how perfect the leaves looked on surrounding shrubs and herbaceous plants. As an entomologist, he would have expected to see holes, chewed edges, and other evidence of herbivorous insects feeding. It occurred to Tallamy that as summer waned, unblemished leaves were a sign that insects such as larval butterflies and moths were having trouble. He quickly solved the mystery. The untouched foliage belonged almost exclusively to exotic Eurasian plants. Indigenous insects utilize plants with which they evolved. They don't readily adapt to newcomers. This means native birds can't find larval insects to feed their nestlings. Therefore, our native birds are also having trouble. Plant native plants in your landscape. Or you can have Doug Tallamy talk to you directly about it. Simply Google Chickadee's Guide to Gardening. Award-winning author, commentator, and Harvard professor Dr. Nancy Gibbs stated, quote, "War is being waged all across the country against the invasive plant and animal species, some 50,000 of them now spreading across the U.S., unquote. The National Park Service has identified invasive species as the #1 ecological problem facing our national parks today. From paperbark trees to pythons, from woolly adelgids to emerald ash borers, native plants and animals are under threat as never before. P equals pollution. To comprehend the extent of water pollution, you need look no further than right here in northeast Wisconsin. Runoff from urban and agricultural sources is causing soil loss at such a level there is a dead zone in the Bay of Green Bay that is 40 miles long, due primarily to phosphorus. Dead zones refers to the loss of oxygen due to algal growth stimulated by that very phosphorus. Air pollution is warming our planet. Al Gore said, quote, "Today we are dumping 70 million tons of global warming pollution into the environment. The top 4 carbon pollution sources are as follows: 12.9% residential and commercial, 19.2% transportation, fuels, gasoline and diesel, 20.6% industrial processes, and the largest of all contributors, 29.5% electric generating stations, mostly coal-fired. These are the biggest single polluters. If we are to have a meaningful impact on global warming, it should start here." The second P equals population. According to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., quote, "Unlike plagues of the Dark Ages or contemporary diseases, we do not understand the modern plague of overpopulation is soluble by means we have discovered and with resources we possess. What is lacking is not sufficient knowledge of the solution, but universal consciousness of the gravity of the problem and education of the billions who are its victims. And finally, O equals over harvesting. Ocean fisheries have been shrinking for decades, since about 1989. An acre of forest is being lost every second, due to over harvesting. According to Scientific American, along with this loss and degradation, we are losing some 135 plant, animal, and insect species every day, or some 50,000 species a year as the forests fall. Dr. Paul Ehrlich said, quote, "Few problems are less recognized but more important than the accelerating disappearance of Earth's biological resources. In pushing other species to extinction, humanity is busy sawing off the limb on which it is perched." We are obviously directly connected to other life. So here we are now in 2020, the 50th annual Earth Day. There is no shortage of canaries in our coal mine. It's been predicted we could witness the loss of 1 million species this century. The background rate of extinction, I should say, is deduced from fossil evidence. It's thought to be around 4 extinctions per million species per year. Right now, it's estimated there could be as many as 50,000 extinctions per year just in the tropics. The actual number of species on Earth is thought to be around 10 million. Slightly less than 2 million have been identified. We need political change. In the words of Abraham Lincoln, quote, "The dogmas of a quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, we must think anew and act anew." Gaylord Nelson said, quote, "Nuclear war is not inevitable, but major degradation of our environment with grave consequences is inevitable unless we reverse the trend." We are in a unique place in history. It's true, we as a species have never been in a position to cause more extinctions than we are today. But conversely, we've also never been in a position to prevent more extinctions than we are today. Dr. Wilson stated, quote, "Destroying rainforest for economic gain is like burning a Renaissance painting to cook a meal." Happy Earth Day. Let's do it.